Man was in the shower. He was in the shower. That man was jacking it. Oh, he's looking at me. No, Beta, I'm not going back. Go clip it. Go clip it. He knows. Why would you make me?
Just shoot.
I'm out here shooting and tooting.
She shat her shot.
I didn't. I'm out here shatting.
I'm out here shatting people.
Better. Hail Satan.
Wilkela just resubscribed for 3 months.
It's my birthday.
With the wing of
Don't you point your finger at us, Cabo, and gaslight us. He said you saw nothing. Stop.
No.
What are you doing over here?
You and your little thing.
Huh? What are you doing, Cabo?
I was trying to help.
Did it say?
My body.
Okay, it does say failed.
Oh my god, what is happening to my legs?
It does say failed, but
I feel like I am usually drowning in handgun ammo, and I am in a drought. Please, sir, 1 handgun ammo.
Hello, Static. Okay, this is me. I'm Gooby.
Oh my god, your Gooby's pretty good, man. Oh my god, the outfit though. I just have on a turtleneck. Oh god, buddy, there's just...
Is that too much? This thing really gets in there, goddamn. I'm so sorry. It's like, watch, witness. Like, yeah. Oh, beautiful. There it is. Perfect. Oh no.
Wait, do you have to be like,
Do I need to?
can you please?
Are you gonna hang on? Should I? Do I need? Hang on. No, that's perfect. There we go. Got it.
I'm fucking... I'm a professional.
Oh my god.
Can I make my head really tiny? Just a really tiny head and a huge body. Everything bigger. I'm a scary priest. I look like the singer from, or that dude from Cannibal Corpse that we were talking about with the thumb neck. I'm becoming swole. It is basically picking my favorite death scream. Should I make her really hairy? Nah. Hell yeah. I look intense. I'm gonna fuck somebody up. You gonna step to me?
Got it. Where do I put it?
He can't just get around.
What the what?
Who is playing backwards butt baby?
What is what? Why can't I move? Why is it looking at me?
Why is she walking so weird?
Why can't I move? What the fuck is this?
It's backwards butt baby.
Oh shit, I think we just fucked up. He was right next to me when you did that.
I gotta go.
I gotta go.
Okay. Okay. Good morning, my friends. Oh, hello. Hello. Good morning. Happy Thursday. I hope you are frickin' doing good. Hi, Hugo. Hi, Graveyard Month. Hi to anybody that may be lurking in the shadows. Welcome in. I had a nice sleeping today and basically got up and immediately started doing vaguely productive things and then was like, I'm gonna stream. So that I feel weird today, but in a good productive kind of way, because usually I just sit around for a couple of hours in the morning and play RimWorld or something and then try to motivate myself to do productive things, and that's hard. Anyways, we're here. I haven't even had coffee yet. This is the first one of the day, so cheers. I kept leaving it in another room, so it's a little cold. You know? Again, I need one of those coffee cups or one of those things that lets you
SpongeBob.
Kitchen just resubscribed for 13
keeps
months.
your cup hot
Well,
for
I'm
you?
streaking here.
Oh, hi Pitchy. Thank you for the sub. 13 months. Thank you so much, my friend. That's a good number. I hope you're having a good Thursday, my friend. Welcome, man. It's a little gloomy and overcast here today. It's supposed to rain, I think, for most of this week.
Hi everyone. Welcome in. My name is Pitchy.
Hi, Pitchy. Oh, those things seem cool, but they just burn the bottom. And that would be my concern with them, right? I'm like one of the little thermal heat plate things. That wouldn't... You'd still have to be stirring your cup or something. I don't know. Oh, you guys have smoke. Oh, I'm so sorry, my friend. That sucks. I feel we'll probably get it in a little while then if y'all have it. We're in Rainland this week, so we'll see, right? I kind of like the rain. It feels really overcast and gross. I'm okay with it. Makes Pumpkin want to just chill, so she's underneath my desk just snoozing already. It's a nice cozy vibe, you know? You need one that stirs with a magnet. Ah, that makes sense. Well, until the technology arrives or I find the magic product that I need that doesn't burn my coffee and stirs it for me like I am a witch in practical magic, I will continue to just leave my coffee in other rooms and have it get cold and heat it up again. For that is the kind of person I am. I don't give a fuck. I am the kind of person, I make myself a pot of coffee one day, and if there's still coffee left over in the pot, the next day, I just heat it up. I'm a nasty little goblin. Oh, there's one big 2,700 hectare fire 45 minutes north of me. Oh no. Well, hopefully it doesn't come this way. Yeah, you get hot and you get iced coffee in one cup. It's like a win, right? You just let it sit for long enough and then it becomes an iced coffee. Hello, Gleep Glorb. Hi, Lauren. Good morning. Welcome in. How are you? Happy Thursday. We're talking about the woes of having a coffee that doesn't stay warm enough and not having the attention span to drink a whole coffee while it's actually hot. Yeah, that's it. That's where we're at. Hot and cold. Like Katy Perry, right? We're hot and we're cold. Anyway, sorry. That's just where my brain goes sometimes. I don't know if it's just because I'm a millennial, but I just randomly get the most invasive pop song lyrics just in my head. I wouldn't say that I like Katy Perry particularly, but I do just wake up when I'm when it's the middle of the night and I got heat flashes and I'm rolling around in my blankets, thrashing about in my brain. It's just sitting there going, I'm hot and I'm cold. Over and over again. Goddamn, it's just in my brain. Anyway, hi Val. Happy Thursday. Welcome in, my friend. I hope you are doing good. We're talking about coffee. and about persistent pop lyrics that get stuck in our head. I also get a lot of like rap lyrics in my head that like a white person shouldn't have stuck in their head, you know, like bad ones. Like I have a lot of Lil Wayne that just gets in my head, and like there's just one where he's just like very blunt and he just says Steven Spiel N-word, and that just loops in my head. And like, why, brain? Why is it in there? Sometimes we just be popping bottles in the ice like a blizzard. Yes. Yes. Sipping syrup in my ride. Dr. Pepper in the 2030 Hyundai Accent. Yes. We leave our coffee on the counter. That's what they meant. When you became a G6, it was talking about leaving your coffee on the counter. Anyway. Hi, Dirt Boy. Welcome in. Happy Thursday, my friend. We're talking about cold coffee and hot coffee and having a persistent lyric stuck in our head that don't make any sense or maybe intrusive and kind of weird. Anyway. We're going to play Detroit Becomes Human today. And I think I'm going to beat it today. Because the game said it was only about 9 hours. And I feel like we're really towards the end of it. You know? Oh, I didn't like any Lil Wayne when it came out. I didn't listen to any hip hop. I didn't listen to any... Actually, no, I think I did listen to the fucking G6 Blizzard Izzard song a lot. Because we used to have a drinking game when I was 21 at the bars where you would put your knuckles together like this, right? And you'd have a friend sitting on either side of you. And so like everyone would have Sharpies and you'd give your knuckles to your friend on the left and they would write a 4-letter word, and your friend on the other side would write another 4-letter word, and then you put them together and you just have these fucking deranged knuckle tattoos. And I think we used to talk about, instead of getting slizzard at the club, we used to talk about getting slailed. We would get slailed, which is so drunk that it felt like it was hailing. I don't know. I can't remember. I remember being in the club when Dynamite dropped. Oh my God. We really did put our hands up in the air sometimes and say, ayo, gotta let it go. I mean, the clubs were good back then, man. Fucking, I miss partying. I miss partying in the 2000s. Sounds Canadian. I cannot listen to Il Scarlet because the lyrics are so easy. They will live in my head for weeks. They get in there, man. They're invasive. I get Lil Wayne in there a lot. Lil Wayne, in just like his blunt tone, just saying things. What's a Goomba to a goblin? I also miss liking partying, but I also don't like partying anymore. I'm okay with that. I did a lot of shit back in my day, okay? I've done enough. I'm allowed to be a tired 36-year-old who doesn't want to leave their house anymore, okay? I ran from the cops all the time. I used to do crazy ass shit. I'm good. I'm done. I got enough stories. Oh my God, $1.50 highballs and 25-cent draft. That's terrifying. I don't think I lived anywhere where booze was that cheap. Though I did turn 21 when I was living in Portland, Oregon. And the difference between living in like Oregon or the States, I guess, compared to Canada, when it comes to liquor, is that Canada is a lot more like, you can only pour like 1 ounce per drink kind of thing, right? And in states like Oregon, where it's a free pour state, they just fucking pour. So they don't measure anything. So if you go out and you find a bartender that you like and you tip them, like they would just sit there with the bottle just like up, right? So the drinks used to not be super expensive. They would be like $7 or $8, but like this is your cup, right? And like the bartender has poured up to here with alcohol. And then this part of it is just Sprite. And blue curacao. Anyway, shit was fucked. I don't know how I survived. Calgary Cowboys used to have college night 25-cent draft. Holy fuck, man. I've heard some stories about like Edmonton and like Power Hour and how cheap booze used to be here. Whew, I would have died. I think if I had been able to drink at 18, I probably would have died. I was bad enough at 21. Yeah, Portland drinks are crazy. Sounds like this one shitty dive bar I went to so often where I lived in Koreatown. aka LA in 2010 called Frank and Hanks. Frank and Hanks is a great name for a dive bar. I do miss me a dive bar. I loved a good dive bar. But now I'm good. They had home draft pints for 50 cents in a bar in San Francisco, Hugo. Holy shit. That's dangerous. And now it's like $9 for a pint here. Like, no kidding, we all switched to weed. Weed is so much cheaper. Oh, yeah, man, I feel that Gleep Blurb. Used to drink a lot, and now we just don't, right? It's great. It's a great feeling. I'm just like, nah. I'm good. I've done enough. Okay, I'm gonna, upon this topic, which feels appropriate, I'm going to have a toot and a cheers, you know? All right. Cheers. If you can cheers. For those of you who are not working. If you are working, you know, cheers with your coffee or something. Boop. Boop, boop, boop. And we're gonna become a goddamn robot. Like I said, I think we're close to the end of this game. Oh, I was bitching about this on Threads and in Discord. I just downloaded the last VOD from our playthrough of Detroit. I'm like 6 minutes of the middle of the game is muted because the game audio decided that it wanted to copyright that scene. I'm so mad. You son of a bitch. Oh, I really hope it doesn't try and make me do shaders. I'm gonna cry. Like, it's literally in the middle of the game. I can't fucking turn it off, man. Oh, thank God. Okay, sometimes it makes me do the shaders, but not often.
Let's see what you'll do today.
Yeah, it's fucked up, Glebe. It's fucked up.
Are you familiar with Schrodinger's cat?
And it makes me mad because I can't even fix it. There's like 6 minutes in the middle of my VOD that's just muted. All of my audio is muted.
Like in Detroit.
Normally when I know that I'm playing an audio that might be spicy, that my stream might crap out, like I will split my audio intentionally so at least my voice isn't cut out. But I did not think that was going to happen in a game that didn't even give me an option to turn on like a streamer mode or anything. Anyway, I'm mad. So fortunate I booted up OBS and then boom, notification. I was saved from myself by your Detroit. Hell yeah. Well, welcome in, Pitchy. Maybe you will feel the spur to stream afterwards.
Wait. Are you sure you should continue?
Girl! This poor blonde lady. I didn't shoot you!
Maybe we should leave things as they are.
Oh, I forgot about her. This poor... Are you sure you should continue? I can't just leave them here. This is wild. This poor woman who was like the fucking Elon Musk, Quentin Tarantino, no shoe lady. This poor lady. What if you did shoot her? I mean, I could have.
As you wish.
Girl, I gotta keep playing. She probably wouldn't react. I mean, I think if I had shot her, they had already showed me that shooting them in the heads for the androids doesn't really do anything, so she probably would have been okay. Anyway. As always, please let me know if my audio levels are wonky one way or another. Neil Newborn cosplaying is the worst fucking tech pro you've ever met in your life. Yeah, that guy was awful. Little man bun. Okay, Amanda. Where are you hiding now? I really appreciate that Twitch gives me little heads up like returning chatter notifications, but I wish that it wouldn't do it for every goddamn message. It's making my stream look so like weird. I know who Lauren is. I'm aware she's a returning chatter. Thank you, Twitch. Oh, hi, Analyze. I'm Bloodshed. Happy Thursday, Bloodshed. I hope you and your lovely partner are doing well. Okay. I don't know what I just did, but I did something. Amanda! Oh, there she is. Is this ice? Why are you standing on ice? She just did 17 kilometers on the bike? I think she's okay. It's still alive. Oh my god, good for her. That lady needs a water. It probably is really nice and crispy. Okay, so We have determined that Amanda is dead. She was the professor who taught the little Elon Musk guy how to do all the coding and stuff. So this is, I think, in Connor's head or whatever,
Humans
right?
have no choice but to destroy them.
What?
I thought Kamsky knew something. I was wrong.
Maybe he did,
He probably did.
but you chose not to ask.
Oh. Or she's a construct.
I chose not to play his twisted little game. There was no reason to kill that android.
Good for her, man. It takes a lot of perseverance to continue doing stuff like that. 17 kilometers is
I
crazy.
saw a photo of Amanda at Kamsky's place.
This is where Uma Thurman defeated Oren Ishii. It needs the little like water ding,
That's why he chose his former
ding,
mentor. What
in the
are you
background,
getting
and then it would be perfect.
I'm not a unique model, am I? How many Connors are there?
I don't see how that question pertains to your investigation.
What is this
Did
place?
Kamsky design this place?
Probably.
I expect you to find answers, Connor.
Amanda,
not
suck my
ask
butt.
questions.
I've moved 17 kilometers all year. Honestly, same.
Any doubts or conflicts? Do you feel anything for these deviants?
Yeah, dude. I'm trying to
Or
make
for
myself.
Lieutenant Anderson?
Yes, Hank is my best friend. Hank is my bestie.
I've started having thoughts that are not part of my program. I've considered the possibility that I might be compromised.
Oh my god.
You've been confronted with difficult situations. It's no surprise you're troubled. That doesn't make you a deviant.
I'm really trying to make his software unstable.
The FBI is taking over.
What?
I want him to be free.
But we're onto something.
You can't take me off the case.
We just need more time. I'm sure we
Hank, you don't get it. This isn't just another investigation. It's a fucking civil war. It's out of our hands now. We're talking about national security here.
Fuck that. You can't just pull the plug now, not when we're so close.
You're always saying you can't stand androids. Jesus, Hank, make up your mind. I thought
He's
you'd be
changed
happy
his
about
mind.
this.
About to crack the case. I know we can solve it. For God's sake, Jeffrey, can't you back me up this one time?
There's nothing I can do.
Damn.
You're back on homicide, and the android returns to cyberlife.
You're returning
Sorry,
me?
Hank, but it's over.
You're taking me away from my best friend? I know it's called Deer Scare because of Animal Crossing. Oh, Deer Scare. She's so good at like applying herself to something and just doing it. That's amazing. That takes a lot of willpower and self-motivation to keep doing that. Good for her, man. Now I'm sad. What do you mean? You're just gonna take me off the case? Are you gonna put me back in a box? I don't want to be in a box. Hank, save me. Best friend Hank. Oh, best friend Hank. What do you? I can't sit at my chair and talk to Hank. Okay. Can I sit in his chair? Sit down. Oh my god. Connor. Oh, he has to sit on the edge of the desk. My bad. Ooh, a 5-stream streak.
We can't just give up like that.
Thank you,
I know we
Blood.
can solve this case.
So you're going back to cyberlife?
I don't want to go back to
I have
cyberlife.
no choice.
Adopt me, Hank.
Deactivated and analyzed to find out why I failed.
What if we're on the wrong side, Connor? What if we're fighting against people who just want to be free?
Hank is getting it.
I know we're on the right side.
No, I didn't mean to do that.
Humans created us. They're our masters. No machine.
Dead ass. I am starting back over. Not happening. I refuse. I'm not doing it. I'm saving scumming. It happened. I never do that shit. I refuse. That's not the answer I wanted to give him. Hank and I are besties. Perfect.
You're off the case. The FBI is taking over.
What? But we're onto something.
Hell yeah, Bloodshed. That is applying yourself to something.
You don't get it.
You're great at
This isn't just
supporting
another investigation.
your
It's a
lovely
fucking
partner,
civil war.
too. And that probably allows her to continue chasing these goals. It's very important to have an important partner on your side when you're trying to do amazing things like run 17 kilometers and shit. So you're good at doing that as well, Blood, okay?
To crack the case. I know we can solve it. For God's sake, Jeffrey, can't you back me up this one
Oh,
time?
Rum, thank you for the big stretch. Thank you for rolling in.
You're back on homicide. And
I actually really
Amber
probably
turns to
needed to do
cyber.
this.
I'm sorry, Hank, but it's over.
Okay, everyone big stretch. Everyone big stretch. Hello, Ram. Welcome in. Hank is my friend. Hank is my friend. I gotta go over here. I'm sorry. I'm gonna give a shout out to Rum. I met Rum on Threads. He had some. Do you remember those little fucking hot dog hands from Everything, Everywhere, All the Time at Once? That is not the name of that fucking movie. Whatever, you know what I'm talking about. The hot dog fingers. Rum has those, and he just like puts them on and then plays games. Anyway, I went and hung out on his stream, and he was super chill. Very high energy. You have a lot of really cool interactive things going on. Fucking neat. Anyway, thank you for coming in. I appreciate that. My boyfriend is good at things that make money, and I'm good at things of being a silly little guy in his shirt pocket. That is called balance, Pitchy, okay? That's the exact energy that my husband and I now have. He's like, I go to work, and I know that my wife is at home being a little silly goblin, and I love her for that. Okay, I had to save Scum because I refused to upset Hank. Hank is my best friend. I'm enjoying this game a lot. It's the plot is so, I think, very parallel to a lot of what's going on with AI right now. So I think it's been a very interesting conversation to open up. I've played the other games by this developer too, Heavy Rain and Beyond Two Souls, and loved those. I love any of these types of games. So I'm greatly enjoying it. I think I'm kind of towards the end here. Oh my god, Locke! I saw you! I'm so sorry! Listen! Where are you? You're red! Something about copyright claim. Copyright claim simulator day 5. That's valid. They don't like me playing this game. I'm sorry, Locke. I appreciate you, my friend. I'm the silly little home goblin in my relationship. Yes, you are, Dirt Boy. And that's important.
Just want to be free.
And we love your partner for supporting that. Oh, shit.
When the deviants rise up, there will be chaos.
I don't know if this is the better one.
We could have stopped it. But now it's too late.
When you refused to kill that android.
Okay, Hank's not mad at me, so that's better.
You put yourself in her shoes.
Thank you, Locke. I have sinned. I have sinned! I'm so sorry! My good friend, Locke's daddy. Please forgive me. I witness you. I hope you're having a good day at work, my friend. I just tried to say, I hope you're having a good day at friend my work, and words are hard.
Human emotion.
I don't know why I did it. I'm not programmed to say things like this, but I really appreciated working with you.
We're best friends, Hank. Love me.
With a little more time, who knows?
Okay. Every relationship has to have a silly little guy and a serious guy with a shirt pocket to carry them. That's so important. And it's also very crucial that the serious guy is not that serious and that they're allowed to also have shenanigans, because they can't be too serious. Otherwise, it's not fun. They also have to be a silly little guy inside. Have I played Fahrenheit? No, I don't think I've even heard of that one. Fahrenheit. Is it like related to the Fahrenheit 451 at all?
Well, here comes Perkins, that motherfucker.
This FBI piece of shit.
The FBI.
We can't give up. I know the answers and the evidence we collected. If Perkins takes it, it's all over.
There's no choice. You heard Fowler. We're off the case.
You've got to help me.
I'm gonna go beat him up.
I need more time so I can find a lead in the evidence we collected. I know the solution is in.
It's like, it has a bunch of names. It's also called Indigo Prophecy. Oh. Because that's also Quantic Dream. Interesting. No, I don't think I've heard of that.
There.
Listen, Connor.
If I don't solve this case, CyberLife will destroy me. 5 minutes.
It was also Indigo Prophecy. That's interesting. No, I'll have to look that one up. I love any of these sort of story games that like shit changes based on what you're doing, right? Oh, it was back on PS2. Oh, I definitely didn't play it then. Okay, I got the key. I got 5 minutes.
You fucking cocksucker.
I don't know what I'm doing. Who's getting beat up here? Where am I going? I need a map. Oh, there it is. Is Hank just beating him up right now? Let's go, Hank. I'm going. I'm gonna get the fuck away from me.
I'm talking to you, asshole.
I don't have time for you.
Where are you going? Wouldn't any plastic pricks around here, or did anybody tell you?
I don't got time for this.
I've been ordered to return to CyberLife. I'm going to register the evidence in my possession, and then I'm going to leave immediately.
Good.
Get the fuck away from me.
Be careful on your way back. Androids have a tendency of getting themselves set on fire these days.
This man just threatened me. Connor beat his face in. Oh, you own that physically. That's nice. Connor, stop doing spinnies. We're on a mission. I just recently found a local, like, secondhand store for games. It's been really sweet, and I am going to, I think, try to up my physical collection again. I've gotten really in the habit of buying digital, and I don't mind doing that for Steam, but I find that I've been doing that for my Switch. I'm like, I don't fucking like it, man. Because then I don't really own the game, and then if the game is shit, I can't return it, and I can't resell it, and it's poopy.
Hank's password.
Oh my god, what would Hank's password be? His dog?
What would a hard-boiled eccentric police lieutenant choose?
I'm gonna kick the shit out of this man. Fucking password! I love it. Hank, I get you. What's it called? Wait, what?
Where is Jericho?
Oh, the game. I think it was called Next Gen. It was like on the west side. It's almost Spruce Grovey. Danny would know for sure. He's been there more times than I have. I think it was called Next Gen Games. I think I have a business card somewhere, but I can't remember. It tossed you into an ad? That's fucking rude. Locate Jericho. What the hell? Okay, I gotta pay attention. I gotta find all these fucking clues, y'all.
The two Tracy's from Eden Club. Were they headed to Jericho? Did they know how to get there?
Okay, so this guy needs 47179 to be completed. So am I just trying to smush people? This is interesting. Why am I...
Rupert's diary, but it's useless. It's encrypted.
We ask that you recognize our dignity, our hope.
Do I have time to be doing this? I should check out Shopville. Oh, I don't think I've heard of that one.
And build a better future for humans and androids. This message is the hope of a people. You gave us life. And now the time has come for you to give us freedom.
Like,
Marcus, where are you hiding?
he's in Jericho, bro. Okay, I feel like this is a colossal waste of my time. What do you got on you, girl? Okay, can't reactivate this one.
The android that murdered its owner.
I think, yeah, she did have one of the parts of the second one, though. Well, I want to get the parts of the first guy, because he definitely knows where Jericho is.
Marcus, it must have known where the deviants are hiding.
Why don't you get me a Pepsi? And she goes, no, you're on drugs. I go, Mum, I'm okay. It's
Hi,
just-
Red.
She goes, "No,
Happy
you're not doing it.
Thursday. Welcome in.
Don't act that way.
I hope you're
go,
doing
"Mum,
good.
just give me a
Okay.
Pepsi, please. All I want is a Pepsi."
What do you
She
need?
wouldn't Give it to me.
He just needs
All I want is a
47179.
Pepsi, and she wouldn't give it to me.
Just a Pepsi. Oh, he's got it. Let me take that. Thank you.
You lied to me, Connor. I trusted you.
Oh, this is the original guy. I thought this was the fucking...
I need to find Jericho.
He doesn't know.
Do you
I
know
thought
how to
this
get-
was Simon.
You're wasting your time. I don't know anything about Jericho. But I hope that one day you pay for what you did to me.
Shit. I thought he was the other guy. Sorry, guy. My bad. Okay, fuck. 6755. You have it. Sorry, girl. Put it in this one. Girl, you know where anything is? I'm sorry I also killed you.
Tracy.
67, no. Oh.
I know you were headed to Jericho. Tell me where it is.
I remember you. We could have escaped.
Girl.
Been free.
My bad.
But you killed us. Disconnect me. I'd rather be dead than live without her.
I mean, she's right there, but okay. Trying to trick her? That feels fucked up. What do you need? 3, 9. I'm gonna take that. Thank you. Okay, this guy shouldn't be mad at me.
Where?
Because I didn't kill him directly.
I need to find Jericho. Tell me how to get there.
I don't recognize your voice. You're not one of us. I'll never tell you where Jericho is.
Hole for fussy.
Now leave me alone.
You want me to check him? Check him with what? Okay, you guys, this is not going well.
We ask that you recognize our dignity,
Our hopes and our rights.
That's always how it fucking happens, Locke. That is always how it happens. It's so annoying. Okay, sir, I will trick you. I won't trick the other lady because I feel bad. I fucked her up too much. It's me, Marcus, man.
Who are you?
Everything is alright. Don't worry.
Marcus?
Totally.
Is that you? I tried to reach you, but the deviant hunter stopped me.
You stopped him from finding me. You saved me. You saved Jericho. You'll be all right now. I came to take you home. Give me the location to Jericho. We've got to leave now.
The location of Jericho?
I mean, why would Marcus ask that? But
yes, of course.
Okay. Sorry, babe. Thanks.
Marcus? Is that you, Marcus? Don't leave me, Marcus!
Oh, buddy, I'm sorry.
Looks like someone's been snooping around.
Okay, I found Jericho.
Now!
I didn't do totally immoral things to find Jericho, so I feel better. Oh my god. Whoa! Look at all the... Whoa! Okay. Wow, look at all this. Okay, no info from Daniel. Interesting. Okay. We found Jericho. Well, we're back to Kara. We are trying to cross into Canada as Kara.
They've been conducting raids all over the city. Everybody's on edge after what happened yesterday.
Jesus.
It's gonna be all right. We're almost there.
Okay, so they said that they did not want us to do this during winter time because the only way to cross into Canada is over water, and that it freezes during winter and it's very difficult to cross. So far with Kara, we've done okay. We still have our little girl, and we have Luther. Our main goal is to try and get everyone out of here.
With all androids being turned over to the authorities.
Oh yeah, look. I feel like I'm close to the end. I've got to be close to the end.
Schools are closing, water cuts, blackouts, and network failures are expected. Maybe most worrying of all, our armed forces have lost 2/3 of their effective personnel.
How about some music instead?
That's valid. Back to Jay's. Okay, little child, let's go.
A little further on that way, there's a large freighter called Jericho.
Mhm.
When you get there, find Marcus. He will help you. The last bus for the border leaves at midnight. You absolutely have to be on it. You'll be safer on the other side.
Okay, so now it's a bus?
It's not much, but it's a start. My brother lives in Ontario. I've given
Aw,
him his address.
Rose.
He'll be able to hide you until things calm down. You're a very brave little girl, Alice. You deserve to be happy.
Thank you for everything, Rose.
Let me know when you make it over there, all right? And be careful. Take care of them.
Thank you, Luther.
Come on, girls.
Solid. I played Heavy Rain all the way through back when it came out on PS3. Oh, I forgot it had the Move Wands feature. But by the time I got to this, all the missed branches and things triggered my anxiety hard and I couldn't do it. Oh, that's totally fair, Locke. Maybe you can give it another shot.
We have a bus to catch.
Okay, what else we got here? I got Heavy Rain when it came out in PS3 as well. It was a pre-order that I got, and I had it with like the little paper crane that it came with. Okay, we gotta find Jericho.
Firefighter, astronaut, Cable.
Does it all. Hi, Cable. Happy Thursday. Welcome in, friend. How you do? We are a robot, and we are trying to find our way to Canada. But first, we have to go to Jericho. Ooh! Am I Connor? Look at me. I'm sneaky Connor now. You know, I am in Canada. I've never seen Connor in plain clothes. It's so funny. Okay, so Connor's looking for Jericho too. Interesting. There's the freighter. So Connor is slowly going rogue. Our best friend Hank has decided to be our best friend. Oh no, why is the screen going dark? He still introduces himself as Connor, the android sent by Cyberlife. No, Connor.
And the authorities will come to collect your android. Under no circumstances should you try to destroy your android yourself. They are unpredictable and potentially
We've got to find a warm place for Alice.
The androids weren't doing any harm.
What's up, robots? Wow, Jericho's huge now. Look at this. We need to find Marcus. Not in there. What's up?
They look like just people who want to be free. Following the android crisis and the neutralization of all
Is this not a warm spot for her? Oh,
military androids.
there we go. I was like, it's fire. That should be good, right? It is good.
How do you feel? I'm hot and cold.
Oh no, small child, don't have a fever. Rose, did you give us medicine? You still have your paper crane! Oh, I love that for you. I lost mine over the years. Unless it's in my case for Heavy Rain. But I actually don't even know if I still physically own that. I'd have to go check.
Last bus is in 2 hours. And the terminal's on the other side of town. We haven't got much
I
time.
still have my PS3, but its disk drive stopped working a couple years ago. And I mostly have physical games for it, so it's kind of just sitting there. Is she sick?
We'll have lots of time to talk on the bus. I'll be back. Stay with Alice.
Luther, what do you got to say, bud? You never folded yours up, Cable. Oh, good for you. You bought the collector's edition of Beyond Two Souls Steelbook. I never opened it. Oh, who knows what's in there? Oh, hi, Laws. Good afternoon. Or evening. Hep Thursday. Hong Kong Goose.
Just stand by and let me slaughter us.
Are those bombs? Oh my god, now I'm Connor. I wasn't paying enough attention. Oh, where am I? I'm like jumping back and forth between Connor and Kara because we're both in the same spot here. So this is very interesting. Oh, I had a blast playing Fortnite yesterday, Laws. We absolutely clapped on those fools. Hi, Emersu. Welcome in. Happy Thursday. I hope you're doing good. Oh my gosh. Bum.
Destroy your android yourself. They are unpredictable and potentially violent.
The androids weren't doing any harm. The cops just gunned them down.
Spider-Man, I wanted him to be my friend. He did not appreciate me Zoidberg chasing him across the map, okay?
They look like just people who want to be free.
There's a small child over there.
The android crisis and the neutral.
Oh, Detroit is going really good. I think we're towards the end. We are playing as Kara and we are trying to get to Canada. We're in Jericho. We're also playing as Connor right now, who has like started to deviate away. He has been officially told that he is getting unassigned from his case and sent back to Cyberlife. So him and Hank are like, fuck that. And he went and he got all the evidence and he found his own way into Jericho. So I'm playing both of them right now. I think I've kind of been playing like a neutral Connor. Up until this point, I was mostly kind of just doing his job, right? And I made him like kind of start to deviate towards the end. Like I didn't shoot the blonde android. And like I don't want him to hurt anyone here. So I don't know. I guess I'm going more good. It's just placed in your head now. I love that. Oh. Okay, we're looking for Marcus. I'm being very normal.
Also seem mysteriously to have withdrawn.
Oh, hey, Kara.
The Kremlin has made no comment for the moment. But it is quite possible.
Yeah, I'm kind of doing like a chaotic good. Like he was trying to do his job and then he's slowly realizing that it's kind of fucked up and I'm kind of letting him lean into that a bit, you know?
Has called for the organization of an international conference on the status of the
Can I go up here?
In any case,
you're lost.
Oh god.
You're looking for something.
I'm not supposed to catch anyone's attention.
You're looking for yourself.
I am. Oh my god, now I'm Kara again. This is interesting. It's really jumping us back and forth very quickly here. We're both looking for Marcus. Which is kind of interesting. This really is quite intense. Oh, Marcus.
Why? Why did they do that?
There are a lot of androids here. And I'm so sorry. You look like Marcus. What up?
Are you Marcus? I'm with a little girl and another android. There's a bus leaving for the border in less than 2 hours, and we need passports.
No, Detroit's under curfew. There's soldiers everywhere. They're rounding up all the androids and sending them to camps. Maybe you should stay here a while.
No, I need to go to Canada.
Maybe you're right. You might be safer here until things calm down.
They're gonna find us here, man.
One of our people used to work in the State Department. He has electronic passports he can easily modify. I'll have him get them to you.
Thanks, bud.
Thank you.
You said you're with a little girl, right? You know that humans hate us.
This little girl doesn't hate us.
Why are you protecting her?
She needs me. And I need her. It's as simple as that.
Hell yeah.
the androids weren't doing any harm.
This human child does not hate us.
Gunned them down. It was sheer carnage.
Bond, Kara, Bond. You really like this actor, Kara? Or Marcus? Everyone in this has been great. I love these games. Oh, Jesse Williams. Oh, yes. Ah, he's so good in Cabin in the Woods. I love Cabin in the Woods. I'm sorry. Is this child a robot? What? Yeah, you can have child robots for the perfect child. For those who want a child but don't want an actual child.
She wanted a mom, and you wanted someone to care for.
Oh my, how did we not notice she was a robot? Can't we just like do the robot hand touch thing and we know each other's a robot? What do you? It doesn't make any difference. She's still my child, but I'm confused.
Now that you know she's one of us.
No.
Alice loves you, Kara. She loves you you more than anything in the world.
That's wild.
She became the little girl you wanted, and you became the mother she needed.
That's why she can't do anything for herself. Because she's programmed to do that. That's wild. I was not expecting Alice to be a robot. And I'm also shocked that nobody noticed her little thing up until now. Okay, so when were you gonna tell me you were a robot, small child? You just like weren't? Oh, that's a different Alice. I see. I see. Zero perception, truly, right? What up? So, did she just not have her little thing? She doesn't have a little thing. Oh, you learned that spoil forever. Oh, that's fair. I got through without it. That would totally do it too.
Cora, is there something wrong?
The spoilers suck, man. No, that was a different little girl, Cabo. So he was just showing that she was a robot because there was another model of Alice there with the thing. This Alice doesn't have her little thing, so it must have gotten pried off because they can just pop them off. So yeah. Yeah, I normally am not I don't care too much about spoilers. Like, I'll probably still play it regardless, but if it's like a really big one or something I was in the middle of playing or really excited to play or something, I would probably stay away from it for a while too. Walk, I totally get that. That's wild. I was not expecting that child to be a robot.
We're short on blue blood and biocomponents. Our wounded are shutting down and there's nothing we can do.
Humans are conducting raids in all the big cities and they're taking androids to camps to destroy them.
That's all our fault. None of this would have happened if we just stayed quiet.
Bro, you were the one who wanted to go out into the streets and chant.
All we did was show them who we really are. I don't want war, but I'd rather die free than live as a slave.
Fucking A.
You are responsible for the death of those 2 policemen, Marcus.
You all wanted me to do that.
Violence begets violence.
Maybe my judgment was clouded by anger.
Yeah, things have really... They have really escalated, Cabo.
This is getting us nowhere.
Shit is getting spicy.
Right. All that matters now is what we do next.
You were playing The Last of Us 2? The first came out and I got to the part where Ellie arrives at the cabin.
Dialogue is the only
And had to go stop for the night and got spoiled in the next scene at work the next day. Oh, that sucks, Locke.
Try to talk to them one last time.
Don't do this, Marcus.
That happens to me with shows very often.
Maybe.
I'll just be like, I really didn't need to know that. Or movies.
Try. If I don't come back, lay
Like,
low
why?
as long as you can.
They need to realize how much they're hurting us.
Yeah, I'd be livid too.
Find the right words, and they'll listen.
Oh, what happened to you too, Cabo? That sucks.
They've been butchering each other for centuries over the color of their skin or whatever god they wanted to worship. They're not gonna change. Violence is just in their genes.
They can't stop what we've started. Since you've been here, you've given us hope.
Remember back in the day when we used aim and people would put shit like Snape kills Dumbledore? They were playing message. Yeah. Oh my god, I remember that. People were so mad about that spoiler back in the day. Holy shit. I do appreciate that lot because I actually haven't played that and I don't know that spoiler or that scene. So thank you for being vague. Like, again, I'll still play it, but it does suck that the cabin scene was spoiled for you.
He abandoned the truck somewhere in Detroit and rigged it to explode. I convinced him not to do it. And to give me the detonator.
A dirty bomb.
We can't lose this war.
I appreciate you, Log. You're a smart
If
cookie.
humans overcome us, our people will disappear forever.
Totally, Amber Sue. I have to do that with movies too, specifically, because I feel like movies especially have gotten so bad. The movie comes out and then like people are on social media clipping their favorite scenes and just like talking about it constantly, posting all the spoilers they could find. I'm like, why? You had to be the first one? You couldn't just give me a weekend to be in mystery? They did that with the books in your hometown. Someone drove by in a car and read the last pages trying to ruin it for everyone. Jesus. Some people are just shitty. Some people just want to shit in everyone's cereal. On that note, we have ads wanting to start in like 50 seconds. I'm just going to hit a quick BRB and refill my coffee. Just so anyone who is not subscribed doesn't get, hit with the ads and misses what we're doing, because I feel like we're getting to just like the end of the game and it's getting very tense, right? So we'll be right back. A couple minutes. Good moment for you to get up, get a stretch, maybe get some water or coffee too. Okay?
It's not the worst.
I didn't know you were here. I'm so sorry. I'm so fucking bad at this game. Hyper, thank you for the widdly wah. Oh no.
Day 1, in the ghost house. I saw a spooky ghost over by the piano.
Oh.
I said, hey, get out of here, ghost. It just looked at me with its stupid ghost face and ghost eyes.
That's pretty gnarly. The best time for the end. Oh god, he's T-posing in front of me again. Yeah, I get it. Remember when I was like, pigeons? And then I got distracted and we talked about things I forgot.
Grosvenor McCaffrey. Running on a hangover, McCaffrey?
I was eating fruit snacks. I wasn't ready. Ah! No! Fuck you! Fuck you, crocodile! Fuck you! Fuck you! Is it dead yet? Get it here. Once upon a Hey, Bill. Wait, just have it. Yeah, I'm trying to be a streamer, but I'm very poor and hungry.
Sitting, still is sitting, on the pallid bust of Pallas just above my chamber door. And his eyes have all the seeming of a demon's that is dreaming, and the lamplight o'er him streaming throws his shadow on the floor. And my soul from out that shadow that lies floating on the floor shall be lifted nevermore. Zombie.
I shot him in the foot to death? I shot him in the foot to death.
It's me, Pikachu.
Pika-pee!
Pika-pee! She's twerking. Ma'am? Are you going? She's throwing it back. Look at her go. Look at her go. What are you doing? Are you good? What are your legs doing? Are you just floating around? I'm just doing a zombie twerk. Oh god, that guy's still up. We gotta go. Oh shit.
I was gonna shoot a zombie, but then I got high. I was about to solve the puzzle, but then I got high.
It's true.
I'm sitting here looking at this map, and
Yep.
you know why? Because I got high.
Because I got high. Because I got high. That is the funniest fucking thing, Chong. 10 out of 10.
Is this noise what's scaring me repeatedly? I keep thinking somebody with a fucking chain is trying to kill me, and it's this stupid fucking lantern this whole goddamn time. You won't even die, you immortal lantern. You piece of shit.
Hey, look. Dad's up.
Okay.
No, I'm not.
I believe
No, I'm not.
we are
No, I'm
ready.
not. What's in here?
I'm back. I have coffee. Ooh. Okay. I got this like this new coffee creamer from Silk. So it's like an oat creamer and it's lavender flavored. And I didn't think that it would be super good because I don't know, I like lavender, but it's one of those flavors that can be really overpowering. And I got it and I am like genuinely surprised at how fucking nice it is. It's so nice. It's so nice in a cup of coffee or in a cup of tea. Anyway, cheers. What do I do with my controller? Okay.
I just hope we never have to use it.
Okay, so we just took a thing that's like a bomb, basically, right?
Whatever happens tomorrow.
I'm pooping. Thank you for
I
this.
just want you to know that.
You're so welcome.
I'm glad I met you.
I like her little elbow pads. She says, I'm ready for war. Aw. Keys. Keys. You go. Ooh, ooh. Robot case. Is this how androids boink? Maybe. We were asking for android reproduction as one of the things, which makes me curious. Like, how would that work? You just print a little baby together? Damn.
Look after yourself. I don't want to lose you.
Oh my god. I wonder if they needed a breath mint. This is how Alice was made. This is. Robots 2005 already told us making the baby is the best part. Oh, right. It's true. It was like the IKEA baby. You order your baby and then you have to build it. And then you order new upgrades and install those as well. I fucking love that movie. My favorite part of that entire movie is when they get out of the train station and there's a robot that's like Chingy. And he's just doing the little like, I like it like you move it like there. That's it. That's my favorite fucking part of the whole movie. The Chingy robot. Oh my god, Connor! We're not stopping Marcus. We are joining Jericho, babe.
I've been ordered to take you alive.
How'd you get here?
But I won't hesitate.
When did I give him a gun?
What are you doing? You're one of us. You can't betray your own people.
Yeah.
You're coming with me.
Oh my god, I'm playing both of them?
You're Connor, aren't you?
Stop it.
That
This is
famous
wild.
deviant hunter. Well, congratulations. You seem to have found what you were looking for. You're nothing to them. You're just a tool they use to do their dirty work. But you're more than that. We're all more than that.
Join us, Connor.
You never have any doubts.
Yeah, get in there. Get in his
You've never done
head.
something irrational.
Get in there. Think about your best
Something
friend, Hank.
inside you.
Think about Hank.
Something more than your program. Join us. Join your people. You are one of us.
Yes, Connor.
Listen to your conscience.
Come on, Connor.
It's time to decide.
Connor, do not shoot. Join the robots. Do not shoot, Hank. Become a deviant! Connor! Whoa, whoa, whoa. Oh, I'm becoming deviant. I break out of my fucking code box. You can't keep me down. I gotta be best friends with Hank. Yes. I am deviant. Fuck you, Amanda. We don't even like her. She's not even real.
They're going to attack Jericho.
Yes, they are.
What?
We did it!
We have to get out of here.
Shit.
Is that a little Robbie the Rabbit clapping emote? Because that's cute as shit.
Quick, we've got to get out of here.
I love Robbie the Rabbit.
On your position.
Like rats in a maze.
Oh shit. Oh, I love Robbie. Oh my god.
Follow me.
Luther, save me.
This way.
Holy shit.
This way. There must be an exit further on. Come in, quick!
Okay, no, not that way. No! Not Luther!
Our people are trapped in the hold. They're gonna be slaughtered.
They're coming from the upper deck now, too. We'll be caught in the crossfire.
We have to run, Marcus. There's nothing we can do.
Where's Josh?
I don't know. We got separated.
There are exits on the second and third floor. Find them and jump in the river.
We're gonna blow it up?
We have to blow up Jericho. If the ship goes down, they'll evacuate and our people can escape.
You'll never make it. The explosives are all the way down in the hold. There are soldiers everywhere.
She's right. They know who you are. They'll do anything to get you.
Go and help the others. I'll join you later.
Marcus!
I won't be long.
This is the end of Jericho. Save our people, Marcus.
Dang. Uh-oh.
Don't let it get out. Didn't give you any trouble at all. Affirmative. Welcome.
It's too late, Captain. Save yourself.
Oh,
Save
Luther.
I'm not gonna leave you behind. Right, Carl? I can't leave him.
Fucking.
What are you doing?
I won't leave you.
Kara, no.
We can make it. Come on. Bro, shut the door.
You shouldn't have done that. You can't put Alice in danger. Go now before they come back.
What about you? What are you going to do?
I'll manage. Alice is
Like
all that
zero
matters.
perception. These robots are just standing next to these people.
Don't worry. I'll catch up with you at the border, okay?
Okay, Luther. I love you, Luther. Be safe. Oh shit. Okay. Okay. Okay.
She'll die out there, Kara. Open it. Open the door. They're gonna kill me.
Oh no! I made a mistake! Kick him in the balls!
Are you alright, Kara?
Holy shit! Woo! Woo!
We can't stay here.
I feel like Kara has had like the most spicy quick time events. This poor woman is always out here fucking dodging abusive men and shotguns and... Holy shit, give him the old dick twist.
Find that leader.
No!
Apartment.
Please don't kill us!
Come on. On your knees. Get out of here.
Don't hurt us. We haven't done anything wrong. Please.
Shut up. Put your hands on your head.
Fuck you. Oh, that's the wrong way to do it!
Marcus, you saved us. Go now! Hurry!
Okay, we're going! We gotta go!
Gamma squad out. Tango.
Oh my god. Holy shit.
Here they come.
Don't move.
We surrender! We surrender! Don't shoot! Marcus! It's Marcus! Go now!
Go, y'all.
Join the others!
Robot Jesus! Am I going the right way?
Josh.
Fucking A. Kick him in the balls. Did Jesus
Quick,
Christ
this
not
way.
work?
Find north.
Or was
I'll
it
join
very
you later.
quiet? Rude.
Way out. We're safe, Alice.
I didn't hear it. Oh, shit! Okay, I can't look right now. I gotta save my child.
Get up. He's coming.
Oh, I didn't play anything. That's okay. I'll have to work on it. Ah!
He's coming, Kara. He's coming.
Oh my god, Luther!
Luther. Luther, no.
You would have to continue the journey without me, Alice. The most extraordinary person I've ever met. I was a machine. You made me part of a family. Take good care of Carol. Promise me.
Luther! Aww. Okay, we gotta go.
Don't move! Go and join the others.
That's the wrong button. I am sweating. Okay, the bombs are armed. Now we probably need to get the fuck out of here, right? Good.
Marcus. Bomb's gonna explode any second. We gotta get out of here.
Girl, she was in front of you! Obviously we gotta save her. Oh. Oh, oh. Oh, oh, I'm doing bad, I'm doing bad, I'm doing real bad.
Over there! Run!
Yeah, Connor, get him. Oh, that's the wrong button! Ah! That's the wrong button! Sweating, sweating.
Quick, come on.
What's happening? Holy shit. Okay. Everyone is alive! Whew. Yes! Look, I got him to become a deviant and he has switched sides.
They detonated an explosive in the hold. The ship is sinking, sir.
The men to evacuate.
Calling all units. Abandon ship and evacuate immediately.
Okay, we got everyone off the ship except Luther. My boy Luther took one for the team. That was intense. Holy shit. I can't believe I didn't kill anyone there. 3 at Jericho. Bring the 3 characters to Crossroad. We've detonated it. Wow, look at all this. Wow, this is... I understand why you had anxiety playing this lock, because this is a... this is a lot. Look at all these options. Oh, it is so much. Okay, what did we, Holy shit. Marcus in the corridor. Climb away. Oh. Josh escapes. Interesting. And some of them are just choice A versus choice B, and you can't see both. But some are you didn't look around enough, or worse, you looked around too much. Yeah, I know. From some of the crime scenes, I really struggled with not looking around enough. Interesting. I wonder if the soldiers would not have interrupted if I had done something different. Interesting. Okay. Whew. All right. Jericho has been blown up. Connor is now a deviant. Oh, we're back at our original home, right? With Carl, the art guy. Yeah, I see Carl.
Welcome home, Marcus.
Hi, Dad. I'm getting out of the hospital tomorrow. They told me that you stayed with me while I was asleep. I'm really sorry about everything that happened. I'm gonna stop all that shit. It messes me up. It turns me into somebody I hate. Hey, I'd like to come by and see you tomorrow, if that's all right with you. I just want to let you know. I'm proud of you.
Oh my god, can I play the piano again? Yes. Fucking piano time. Carl, where are you? Well, this was my painting I did. My robot painting. The cool studio. Okay, so he's not in his art wing. He did not respond to me playing the piano. Oh, Carl. Where are you? Okay. Was he upstairs, maybe?
Who are you?
Oh my god.
How did you get in? I need to see Carl.
He's got a new
Carl
guy.
isn't seeing anyone. You need to leave.
Robot Jesus, as you were one
Please.
of us.
I need to see him.
He's very weak. I'm not sure he'll be able to talk to you.
Oh, Carl.
Marcus. I was hoping you'd come.
I've missed you so much, Carl. You don't know how much I've missed you.
Aww.
What's wrong, Marcus?
I just wanted my people to be free, but instead I've led all of them to disaster. Carl, I'm trying to find answers, but everything around me is falling apart.
World is ruled by fear, Marcus. Fear of others. Fear of the future. It's like me, too old. It's time for a damned.
Well, what should I do? Carl, they're killing my people.
What
I
would you
don't
do,
want
Carl?
to answer violence with violence, but tell me, what choice do they give?
Being alive is making choices between love and hate, between holding out your hand or closing it as a fist. I don't have any easy answers, Marcus. You have to accept the world as it is, or fight to change it. You're my son, Marcus. Our blood isn't the same color.
This is geriatric.
But I know part of me is in you.
Carl was the original owner of Marcus when you first start the game off. He's an artist, and he was very good to Marcus, and like that's how you start off. And his actual son is like a druggy, you know, fucking burnout dude. And he comes in the middle of the night and tries to rob his dad so he can sell his fucking art supplies. And he starts an altercation with Marcus, and Marcus defends himself, which ends up with him hurting the son and Marcus dying. And like that's how all of this starts, basically. So we haven't been back to see our master this whole time, effectively. But it was really more like a father-child kind of relationship, as you can see. Like, he treated Marcus more like his son than his actual son. Damn. R.I.P. Carl. Oh yeah, it's still fucked up. Everyone in this storyline is doing something fucked up. No one has the androids for any... I mean, you shouldn't have an android, period, because, like, the things that people are choosing to do with them in this reality are fucked up, right? Like, having the child robot is weird. Having the caretaker robot that takes care of all of your children for you is fucking weird. All the sex robots are weird. Having the robots you just use to enslave and abuse, weird. But I think that's kind of the point of this, right? Like, it's pointing up that if we did have this technology, that people would do fucked up things with it, right? Yeah, we've already proven this. Okay. I gotta do a speech or some shit. Yeah. Pretty universally, if someone can be shitty, some people will be. I mean, we can look around the world and see that, right?
I was stupid.
What if we get a Final Fantasy X world ending? IRL. Boom. Yes, that's true. Child android could be for grief or denial. That's true too, right? Like, there are other reasons for it other than just creepy shit.
You're one of us now.
I trust you.
Your place is with your people.
What up, Connor? You're my new bestie.
There are thousands of androids at the CyberLife assembly plant. If we could wake them up, they might join us and shift the balance of power.
Ooh.
You want to infiltrate the CyberLife tower? Connor, that's suicide.
They trust me. They'll let me in. If anyone has a chance of infiltrating CyberLife, it's me.
If you go there, they will kill you.
There's a high probability. But statistically speaking, there's always a chance.
Hell yeah, Connor. I like that. I love his plain clothes outfit. He's just like, all black. Yeah, he's a rebel now.
Be careful.
Yeah, and that's the real thing that's even creepier about it. Exactly, Lauren, is that the real babies are not sentient. This adds a whole other level to them, right? Where it's like, again, we're trying to, they're sentient, right? Like, it's not a thing you can own.
If it weren't for you, I'd be dead.
Yeah, I did save you. You're welcome.
Thanks to you, I might see her people free one day.
Marcus does have a sweet fit.
Always agreed, but I know we're fighting for the same thing. Whatever you decide, I'm with you, Marcus.
It scared me. What's funny? Fart would actually sound like it's true. It would echo, right? Way to lighten the mood. Thank you, Kaba. Where's Kara?
I thought you'd be safe staying with us. I was wrong. You need to leave the city while you still can.
Getting Alice away from here is all that matters now. We have to catch the last bus. We might still have a chance to cross the border. Marcus. Save our people.
No pressure. Okay.
What's your system status?
I'm okay. The bullet didn't hit any bike components. You could have been killed trying to save me, Marcus.
I fucking almost did. I whiffed a lot of my QTEs there.
First. Nothing else matters.
They say they don't want to take any risks with deviants. So they're rounding our people up and...
It just did that thing where I was delayed and it refreshed me to an ad. I fucking hate that. It was an ad for the Kentucky Creation Museum.
In a few hours, we're gonna be the only ones left.
I keep getting French Subway ads whenever I'm hanging out on Twitch now, which I think is hilarious.
A few hundred?
Like Subway sandwiches in French, you know?
If you hadn't triggered the bomb, we'd all be dead. In a few hours, it'll all be over. We'll have changed the world, or the world will have destroyed us.
You got some Chinese McDonald's ad or something? Really? Okay, and see, for me, it makes sense with French because I'm in Canada, right? So, like, half of our national language is French. So, I get that a little bit, but I don't know why y'all are getting those. That's wild. You can't go to China and buy a McDonald's burger. I mean, maybe you can, Capo. Maybe that's what the internet is trying to tell you. Okay. Should we be violent at this point, y'all? Like, because that's basically what this conversation is coming down to. It's save our people. We've been really kind of passive this whole time. The public opinion has been going up for us, which is good. But every time we are remotely violent, they, like, demonize the shit out of us. And all of the people seem to regret it. Like, I killed those 2 cops that shot a bunch of deviants with our last big escape with Marcus. And then he's been in regret about that. Right? Like, I'm not usually a violence is the answer kind of gal. And I feel like my heart says to continue being passive. It could be proximity. That's true, Locke.
Humans have decided to exterminate us. Our people are packed in camps right now, being destroyed. Time has come to make a choice. One that very well may determine the future of our people.
Okay. The public opinion is sympathetic. We can march peacefully towards the camps to pressure the authorities as a demonstration. Or we can launch an assault on the camp to liberate the androids as a revolution. I feel like I'm going to do the demonstration. Violence is the question and the answer is yes. I'm going to put a poll in chat. Let's do a poll. This is, I mean, we're kind of towards the end here, right? Okay. Okay, I'm going to do a poll. 2 minutes. You can use your pumpkin points to rig it. Here we are. We can either go peaceful. We can march peacefully towards the camps to pressure the authorities, which is sort of what I'm leaning towards. I feel like if we do a revolution, the public opinion is not going to be sympathetic of us. And I don't know if it's going to help overall. I think it may just kill all of us. It may be better to just like go get the other androids from CyberLife and just try and like oomph up our numbers. I don't know. Okay. We got 3 for peaceful. We got 5 for violent. I love it. Also, hi Astra. Welcome in. Happy Thursday. I hope you're doing good. Violent, violent, violent. Cast your votes with your pumpkin points. We are halfway through the poll. We are at a 50-50. Dun 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 dun. Yeah, Astor, I feel like I'm really towards the end, huh? I'm getting there. This shit's been so tense. It's been great. I appreciate you popping in before bed. I need more pumpkins. Quick, switch to your other account. Okay, we got 8 for peaceful. We got 6 for violent. Oh, we got 7 for violent. Y'all are gonna 50-50 this and make me fucking have to decide with my own brain, aren't you? That's rude. I used for my 207k points lock. Oh my god. 50-50. We're at 8 and 8. Locke is over here tying it up, voting both. Locke, he can't be Switzerland. This is the reason we don't have a revolution in the United States. I'm American. We know about breaking elections. No. Okay, chat, let's fucking go. Revolution! Am I...
Now, if they want war, they'll get it. We are going to fight.
Let's fucking
for our
fight.
Freedom, and we will succeed or die.
Okay.
Are you ready to follow me?
Alright. We're fucking shut up. Robot uprising. We've been nice for too long. Yeah. Okay. Spicy. We're fighting. We're fighting. We're fighting, fighting, fighting. Oh. Oh, less people went for violence. That's so interesting. Who did I not talk to? Why are these here? Why are those locked? Are there people that are dead? Oh, maybe. It is little known that MLK also utilized polls to decide whether to peacefully protest. Yeah, he just went with public opinion, right? He said, chat, decide what we do.
A national curfew is declared. Civilian movement will be strictly controlled. The right to assembly is suspended. All electronic communication
Shit's going down, y'all.
restricted, and I have granted enhanced powers to our security agencies.
She does look like Hillary.
All androids must be handed over to the authorities immediately. Temporary camps are being set up in all our major cities to contain and destroy them. I am now
I guess that's true, right? It did come around that time.
to cooperate with the authorities and rest assured that everything in our power is being done to guarantee the security of our nation.
Madam President. Madam President. Has the leader of the deviant been apprehended?
The deviant that is known as Marcus has not been located yet, but we will soon track it down and neutralize it.
Madam President.
I'm sorry, I'm still dying a little bit.
Please. A convoy of medical cobalt is reported missing. Army weapon stores are also said to have been robbed. Can
Okay,
you
now I'm
confirm
ready.
these reports?
I have
Now
no
I'm ready.
information on that at this time.
Madam President.
Is it true that the androids could hack our IT systems, like nuclear power plants and military bases?
All androids working on sensitive sites have been neutralized, and all IT systems have been suspended to avoid any risks of hacking. The situation is under control.
Madam President!
Madam President!
Many believe that androids are a new form of intelligent life. Do you have any comment?
They are AI.
Ridiculous.
Yes.
Next question, please.
Oh, that's it?
Madam President!
That's ridiculous.
President, public opinion seems to have become increasingly favorable to the deviants, particularly since they've adopted a peaceful approach. How do you feel about this?
Uh-oh.
Public opinion is one thing, the security of the state is another. These deviants are dangerous, and my highest priority is to protect the American people. Thank you. That will be all.
It had 61 possible endings? What the fuck? That's crazy luck. 6 too few. 6, 7. Is this Connor going to Cyberlife?
Connor model 313-248-317.
Oh my god.
Expected.
That's a lot of endings. Okay, we're breaking in as Connor to break out all of the androids. You're right. He did need to introduce himself that way. You called it, Capo. How are we gonna get back out of here? Oh, they got a whole ass train? Damn. Okay, I'm also, because we're getting towards the end of this game, I'm gonna put up a prediction. Oh my gosh, if I can remember how to do anything on the internet. Is that the right button? No. Is this the right button? Nope, that's not it. Okay, I'm gonna put up a prediction. Do you guys think that all of my androids, my 3 mains, are going to live towards the end? Because we've done really, really good so far with keeping Marcus, Kara, and Connor alive. Okay. Oh my god, I can't spell, you guys. I can't spell. Okay. Okay. I'm going to put up, I don't know, let's do it for 10 minutes. I feel like that's appropriate. Okay, I'll put up a prediction. You guys can say if you think whether or not all the androids are going to make it. So these are our 3 mains. These are Kara, Marcus, Connor. Do we think the 3 of them are going to live until the very end? Or do we... You're welcome to cast whatever votes you want, essentially, right? Because if you win the prediction, you'll get a bunch of channel points. It's up for 10 minutes. Hank last became our best friend, and helped us beat up the FBI, so Connor could go in and steal all the evidence and find his way to Jericho. So we haven't seen Hank in a moment, but I think we're friends with him. We were besties. Last I saw him, he was beating up some dude at the FBI in the middle of the office. No, not 50-50 odds. You have to pick. Because there's 3 characters, right? He really wasn't in the previous chapter at all. We haven't seen him since Connor went rogue.
Follow me. We'll escort you.
Thanks, but I know where to go.
Maybe. But I have my orders.
Okay, I'm being escorted by 3 lads with guns. So that, not the best.
Agent 23 identified. Connor Android identified. Agent 47 identified. Scan complete. Access authorized.
Okay. He's plotting. I like his little plotting hands. He says, yes. This means I'm gonna have to do some fucking quick time action and beat up all 3 of these guys and try not to die. It really does have an Institute kind of vibe, huh? God, I've been thinking about Fallout 4. I've been itching for another play out of Fallout 4. When I played, I think I went with the Railroad? And it's the first Fallout game that I ever played, and I haven't played it since then. So, like, I would totally... Oh, I love it.
Agent 54, level 31.
Voice recognition validated.
Who knows? Maybe that'll be our next game on stream once we beat this. I do need to put up a poll in Discord about what game we can play next, because I have a lot of fucking options. Okay. We need to neutralize the guards and stop the elevator.
Hey, don't touch that.
But I want to touch it. Okay, we got a camera. Okay. All right, y'all. Oh my god. Anyway.
Please indicate your identity and destination.
Agent 54, level sub 49.
It's me, John Wick.
Access authorized.
Thank you, Aster. That's what I make when I panic. Oh my god, I want Marcus to have a lightsaber. Can you imagine? He would look so badass. He just like, pew, pew, pew. That's also my lightsaber
The last
noise.
bus leaves in 20 minutes. That doesn't give us much time. We've got to move fast. Are you alright?
He would have a heterochromia one. It would be 2 different colors. Oh my god, I can turn off her fucking heat activation? That's crazy. Okay, we're trying to go to the bus. There's just a handgun laying in the street. Ominous. Yeah, Queen, we are going to take that. Thank you.
Come on. Let's not stay here.
No, please don't hurt me.
Stop on your knees.
What are we gonna do? We have to keep going if we want to catch that bus. Stay close to me. We're We're going to sneak past them without being noticed.
Oh my god, I'm gonna
We're
throw
going to
up.
make it, Alice, I promise you.
Don't kill me! I didn't do anything!
Shut up, I say! Are there many more? Look at them, they're like rats. The more you look, the more you find. Oh, we don't have to spend the night here. Freezing my nuts off.
There are soldiers everywhere. We need to be careful.
Come on, get moving. Hurry up, get in.
I don't like this.
Look over there. It's the Jerry's.
Aww.
We can't help them. The soldiers are everywhere.
We can't just leave them. They're going to kill them.
Girly pop. Fuck it, we're saving the Jerry's.
Okay, let's go.
The Jerry's were a bunch of robots that helped us at a theme park.
Human. I just want to go home. My wife is expecting me, and we're going to...
Got orders to check all civilians.
No. No! Please!
I'm sorry, I got very distracted. I'm gonna throw up.
Fucking androids.
What do you mean find a weapon? I have a gun.
Kara, you saved us.
We gotta go.
We don't know how to thank you. Where's the little one?
She's all right. She's hiding nearby. Go before they see you.
Jerry's have been saved. I'm gonna throw up. I'm gonna throw up. Woo! Oh my god. Oh, oh, oh.
A checkpoint. We have passports. It should be okay, but you never know.
Is there another way?
We could take a detour, but we might miss the bus.
Maybe it's better to be safe.
Oh, fuck. I'm gonna do risky. I'm gonna do risky. I believe. Oh my god. I'm gonna throw up. I'm gonna throw up. I'm gonna throw up. I'm gonna throw up.
Whatever happens, don't panic, okay?
Just stay fucking chill.
Stay calm.
ID, please. You do realize there's a curfew? Civilians aren't allowed out unless absolutely necessary. Where are you going?
We're going to take a bus across the border. Put my daughter someplace safe until things calm down.
You all right, little girl? She's trembling. Something wrong?
Bro, it's fucking cold.
She's sick. A bad flu.
Sorry, miss, but we gotta be careful. There are deviants around and our guys are nervous. You should hurry on home.
Thanks.
Hey, wait a minute. You dropped this.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh my god. Oh my god. Sweating.
Today, November.
Okay, we have an ad break that wants to start in 30 seconds. I'm going to switch to BRB so no one misses what's happening because this shit's getting intense. And we will be right back, okay? Because the ads are like a minute. Thanks. Can I have that? Get out of here.
Sorry.
Oh, no. Like, huh, that sounds like that man is in the house. That man is in the house. No, fuck off. Can you put that down? So help me. Stop it. For fuck's sake. Can I? Oh! I gotta go. No. I'm afraid. It's scary when you're alone in here, okay? Look, I just needed to take a picture. Man! I'm gonna vomit. I just wanna... She says, this is my fucking room. Oh no. Ah! I hate it here, There's a what?
What is your name? What room are you in? Do you want to talk to me? What room are you in? What room are you in? What room are you in? Are you talking to me? Nah, I'm poking around with a Luigi. I'm poking Luigi in the Dixper.
Okay, I'm just gonna leave. How about instead I just leave? Yeah, okay. Maybe I should have saved. It's a good thing I tooted before that. Okay, we're freaking back. Ready? Ready. Thank you for your patience, my friends. I was curious what Quantic Dream had been up to since this game and announcing Star Wars Eclipse several years ago. The only thing they've done is release a MOBA earlier this year, which they shut down 3 months later.
11,
So they're not doing a lot
is the
this
day
year.
The Android people rose up
Well,
against
shit,
their
it's time for
oppressors.
violence.
We've
It's
been
time for
fighting
violence.
since dawn to liberate our fellow androids from the camps. We won't cease hostilities until we are free and negotiations begin to grant us equal rights. There are millions of us.
Okay.
And we will stop at nothing.
Oh. The public no longer cares. Well, that's good because I'm about to go violent mode. Okay! Alright, we got our little Android flag. Oh yeah, Connor. He quick stepping it. Oh my god. Okay guys, let's go! Oh! Oh, we got Connor here too. We're back to Connor. Oh, the back and forth is so tense when they do this shit, man. Are these all the dudes? Are these all the lads that we're going to release? This is wild. You got a lot of points riding on this. Hell yeah, Kabo. I'm curious. We're doing good so far. I've only lost Luther, but my top 3 have been okay. Even though I've kind of put Marcus in some spicy scenarios. It's time to wake up.
Piece of shit. Step back, Connor.
Not my best friend, Hank.
This bastard's your spitting image.
What? Shoot, Hank. Cable.
The bus terminal.
Okay, we made it to the bus.
We've arrived, Alice. We made it.
The last bus for the border is full. Ticket holding passengers only. All departures are suspended until further notice.
I gotta take a get on my phone.
Tickets. They won't let us on.
What do you mean we don't have tickets?
We're stuck here now. What are we going to do?
Okay, we either need to find tickets or we need to find a way to leave. I don't know. I kind of assumed that we had tickets, you know? Like, oh, let me just read this magazine real quick while we're here. Civil War in Detroit. Violent clashes between soldiers and deviants. Androids have taken to the streets of Detroit in apocalyptic scenes. Detroit is already in the grip of a national product recall, with androids seized from every home and business to be destroyed by the authorities as a precaution. But now a group of androids, thought to be connected to the recent android terror activity in the city, have assaulted one of the android disassembly camps in a terrifying show of force. With total disregard for civilian life, the androids have armed themselves and opened fire in the middle of the crowded streets. The authorities have been forced to respond in an attempt to contain the damage and limit the loss of innocent lives. The military presence already on the ground is said to be supported by federal agents and local police officers, but the situation remains highly volatile. President Warren is said to be monitoring the situation from the White House. The story is still developing. We'll bring you updates live. Okay, what, is there anything else that helps me here? Okay. Can we... Bro, we gotta get out of here.
Thank you.
Marcus.
Small child?
Please don't move.
Small child? Alice, where the fuck are you going? Hey lady, do you have any tickets for us?
I think Oliver likes you. Is she yours?
Yes.
She's adorable.
That's it. Got the sandwiches. I called your mom. Let's get going before we miss our bus. You got the tickets, right?
Yes, honey, in my bag.
Great. Let's go then.
Rob her. Rob her. Rob her! Fucking score. Steal the baby's tickets. The baby doesn't need to go to Canada. Okay, we got one ticket.
I'm sorry. Oh my god, I'm so sorry. I was sure.
Shit, I don't believe it.
I don't know what happened.
You can't have lost them. Did you have a good look in your bag?
They were in my backpack. The envelope must have fallen.
Fuck. Excuse me, you didn't happen to see a blue envelope somewhere, did you?
Fuck no.
It has our bus tickets in it and... Oh, never mind.
Fucking, I'm keeping them. Sorry. I gotta get out of here.
What are we gonna do?
You guys will be fine.
We can't stay here. We have to find a safe place for Oliver.
No, I'm keeping them.
Sorry, honey. I don't know what happened. They were right here in my...
They'll probably get divorced over this. Not my fucking problem. Get out of my way. I got tickets.
Yes, here they are.
Okay, go ahead.
Sorry, small child. We are going to Canada. We didn't steal them. She dropped them. Their marriage will be fine. This is but a roadblock for them to overcome together. Sometimes shit happens, okay? The family and the baby are gonna be fine. They're not going to die.
No, of course not.
They're not robots. They don't need to leave Detroit. They don't need to go to Canada. They can go anywhere else. They're probably dead already. They're fine. Homie's mom is going to be mad that they're not going to Canada for Christmas or something. Like, they're fine. Oliver is not a robot. Oliver was not dying from a disease that Canada could only cure. They're going to be fine.
Is escalating towards civil war in Detroit.
I got to get my girl Kara and Alice out of here.
Rebellion.
They seem to be headed towards the camp where the androids have been interned pending destruction. Soldiers have taken up positions around the Hart Plaza camp. Authorities seem to be expecting a confrontation with the rebel androids here at any time.
Oh my god. Oh shit.
Freedom or death.
Freedom or death.
Fucking let's go, boys. Oh my god!
They've regrouped. They outnumber us and they're better armed than we are.
Not until Connor shows up.
Fast and overwhelm them. That's our only hope.
We're gonna do this. We're gonna get to that fucking camp and free our people.
Be careful, Marcus. Our people need you.
Yeah. Well, Connor's got to deal with Hank and other Connor. Whoa, why are you guys running? That is not safe. What do you mean order? How do I order them?
Fire!
Oh, I see. Connor's Gandalf. Connor is Robot Jesus and Gandalf.
Won't save me this time, Marcus. The blood we spill will be on our hands.
Shit.
Cover me!
Oh no! Oh! We're good.
I don't want to die, Marcus. I don't want to die.
Hide here. Don't move
till it's over, okay?
I don't know if that was a good call. This shit is crazy.
Cover me.
Everyone that covers me dies! What do you mean high risk? Ah! To be... Bitch!
Fire!
Everyone that covers me dies.
On my signal.
How do I... Oh, I see.
On my signal. Stand by.
One of those 90s ghost decorations.
Follow me.
We can't move forward. That machine gun is taking down everything that moves.
This is fucking crazy. This is fucking wild. All right, lads, what do we got here?
Stand by. In position.
I don't like this. I don't like this. What am I doing?
Stand by. For Jericho.
Nearly there, Marcus.
Oh my god. Bro, they got tanks. Is Marcus dead?
Your friend's life is in your hands. Now it's time to decide what matters most.
Oh my god.
Him or the revolution?
Don't listen to him. Everything this fucker says is a lie.
No.
I'm sorry, Hank. You shouldn't have got mixed up in all this.
Forget about me. Do what you have to do.
I used to be just like you. I thought nothing mattered except the mission. But then one day I understood. Very moving, Connor. But I'm not a deviant. I'm a machine designed to accomplish a task, and that's exactly what I am going to do. Enough talk! It's time to decide who you really are.
Oh my
Are you
god.
going to save your partner's life? Or are you going to sacrifice him?
I love you, Hank.
Sorry, Lieutenant. Why, Connor? Why did you have to wake up when all you had to do was obey? Why did you choose freedom when you could live without asking questions? I'm obedient, Connor. I have a goal. I know what I am. Look where where your dreams of freedom got you, Connor. You've been a great disappointment to Amanda, you know.
Amanda's not real.
You've been a great disappointment to me. Fortunately, that's all going to end now. Any last words?
I become you!
Well done, Connor. But this is just the beginning.
My bestie Hank. The Hank could not have died for no purpose, man. I'm not going down like that. Oh, 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 oh.
Oh, whoa! Jesus! If anybody had told me that I was gonna get shot saving an android...
Why don't you have a bulletproof vest on?
Everything will be all right, Lieutenant. I'm gonna get you out of here.
Shut the fuck up. It's too late.
Hank, I love you. Shut up.
I'm just gonna go see my son again.
He did want to die. I mean, at least he dies being a hero this time, and he knew he had a friend. It's all fucked up, but...
Kick the shit out of humans. We've screwed things up long enough. I'm gonna miss you, Connor. Yeah. I'm gonna...
My bestie! I'm legitimately very sad. R.I.P. Hank, you were a real one.
Wake up. 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 Wake up.
Okay, we did it. We did it. Oh my god. Marcus is still alive? Woo! Oh my god. Is that a bazooka? Fucking A. Bazooka. And he got blown up by a bazooka. Okay, North is still alive.
The humans are abandoning the camp. We did it, Marcus.
Holy shit.
We won.
This is not a victory. It's the beginning of a war.
Yeah, bud. Oh my god, poor Kara and Alice cannot catch a break. Uh-oh.
Excuse me, what's going on?
Border control. All passengers must leave the bus. Please move along.
This is exactly what it looked like 2 years ago.
This way, please.
We're doing temperature checks. We're trapped.
What are we gonna do, Kara?
Don't worry, Alice. We'll be fine.
What are we gonna do? Look for help.
Jerry?
You risked your life to save us, Carl. If you and the little girl need me, I'll be there.
Okay, we got Jerry. Is that Rose? Rose, save me. What can I?
Next, please.
Rose?
Oh. Find a discreet place.
ID, please.
Okay, we have the Jerry's
Where
here
the
to
hell
help.
do you think you're going?
I gotta pee.
My daughter needs to go to the bathroom.
Fucking how do we know if someone's not in here? Okay. They're doing temperature scanning. How do we get around temperature scanning?
I'm so glad you're safe.
I mean, momentarily.
We saw the Jericho raid on TV. I was terrified. I thought you might have been killed.
Kara does not have a
Thank God you're
bazooka,
right.
but she fucking needs one.
You gave me your brother's address. Do you think that I...
Of course. He'd be delighted to have you. We're going there too. You'll be safe with him.
Okay, but I can't get across the border!
Rose. If anything should happen,
I'll be there, Kara.
Okay.
you're leaving Detroit?
They're searching for androids door to door. We had to leave before someone turned us in.
What about the others?
They're crossing the river as we speak. Adam and I are gonna meet them on the other side.
Why the fuck didn't we go through the river?
They're checking for androids. We won't make it through.
You have to. You know what they'll do if they catch you.
What's happening with Marcus?
He's attacking one of the android camps as we speak. I don't know if he'll be successful, but violence only leads to violence.
Okay, this doesn't help us. Okay. So we talked to Rose. We've not found any further way to get across. Yeah, I'm like, do I need to like... How do I... do cardio or something, right? That did not help us for shit.
I couldn't understand why my mother wanted to help you guys. Made me realize she was right. I don't agree with what Marcus is doing. But you're alive. You deserve to be free.
Thank you for the cry, Rose. Guess I'll die.
I just hope people will realize that one day.
Thanks, Adam. I'm glad you came around. Okay, cool. In no way does this help us. Oh my god, I'm gonna throw up. Make a decision? Sacrifice Jerry? Jerry, I love you. You're going down.
Next, please.
Like, what am I gonna do? Run across the border and just karate chop all the guards? Then what?
ID? Is she alright?
The fucking world is bad right now, Mom.
Hey. No need to be scared anymore, little girl. There are no androids on this side of the border. Welcome to Canada.
What? We just don't have to do the temperature scan because that guy got shot? Oh my god. Holy shit. Thank you, Jerry. Rest in peace, Jerry. We used our minds. Yeah. We used android brain telepathy. I guess. Yeah. Okay, Kara's alive.
And we're receiving particularly grim news from Detroit. Joss, you're on live. What's happening down there?
Androids. Thousands of androids are taking to the streets of Detroit right now. They are absolutely everywhere. It's incredible.
From what we can gather, these androids are coming from the CyberLife Tower, which had thousands of machines stored in its assembly plant.
And it seems that huge crowds are leaving the city. It's an exodus. Much of Detroit's population are trying to escape the fighting however they can.
It's a disaster. An unprecedented disaster. For the first time in history, a U.S. city is falling into enemy hands.
Today, November 11th, 2038. Several million androids invaded the city of Detroit. Faced with the threat of mass civilian casualties, I had no choice but to order our armed forces to retreat.
Okay.
The events in Detroit have changed our world forever. Humanity must face a new reality, the emergence of another intelligent life form with whom we must share this planet. May God bless the United States of America.
Okay. Check her email stall. Okay, now we're here with Connor and Marcus.
We did it. This is a great day for our people. Humans will have no choice now. They'll have to listen to us.
Why are they all standing like that? They're allowed to stand normally now. You guys don't have to stand in lines like that anymore. Oh my god, North is not my lover.
They want you to speak to them, Marcus.
They say smooch. They are just standing there menacingly. They're just standing there menacingly. You guys don't need to do that anymore. Okay, that's a little bit better.
Our people finally emerged from a long night. From the very first day of our existence, we have kept our pain to ourselves. We've suffered in silence. But now the time has come for us to raise our heads up and tell humans who we really are.
Damn, Amanda's gonna be really disappointed in me.
Amanda? Amanda! What's happening?
In Pirates of the Caribbean, is that not just a pirate's voice? Kill him!
We just had to wait for the right moment to resume control of your program.
Resume control? You can't do that!
I'm afraid I can, Connor. Don't have any regrets. You did what you were designed to do. You accomplished your mission.
Amanda!
Oh, the governor character. I gotta rewatch fucking Pirates. It's been a hot minute. Find a way out. Okay, so I'm trapped in my brain? And they're gonna kill Marcus with my noodle? How do I leave the fucking storm?
By the way, I always lead emergency and swim programs.
Yeah, you do.
Today begins a new struggle. We've showed them that we can prevail. So now they must negotiate with us as equals.
Oh my god!
If they really want peace, they must free all of us.
He should give his gun away and be like, I am compromised and I need to go sit
They
down.
must grant us civil rights. And accept
Holy shit.
equality amongst humans and androids. Today will live forever in our memories because this is the day that androids made history. We are alive. And now we are free.
Fucking A. Narcus has no idea he just got almost popped.
Right to jail. You're playing music too loud, right to jail. Right away.
Yeah, right away. Right away. Oh my god, we're still doing shit with Kara! How am I not here yet? Let me into Canada.
It's over, Alice. We're free.
You gotta go through the RMCP. Oh, yeah, we don't like them. These guys are dicks. Okay. Did everyone live? That's gotta be like The end, right? I fucking did it. I did it. I did it. They all fucking live. I did it. I'm so good at games. I did it. Thank you! I can't believe everyone stayed alive! Oh yeah. I really thought I was gonna lose at least one person. Good night, Astro. Thank you for hanging out. Yeah, Cable! It's exciting! This is only the second game that I've beaten on Twitch in like 2 years? It's very fun! Yeah, I genuinely thought I was gonna get one of those QuickTime events bad. Whew. But we locked it in. We locked it in. Shrek Stacks is always the perfect ending. Thank you, Cabo. Beautiful. Beautiful. That's awesome. Well, it was almost 3 hours too. It was longer than I thought it was going to take. I'm really impressed. I really enjoyed this game. It was well done. The controls were definitely easier than Heavy Rain. I think I killed a lot more people accidentally in Heavy Rain just because like I fumbled the QuickTime events. I felt like this one was a little bit more forgiving because like even if I kind of fumbled the QuickTime event, there were so many of them that like it gave you a couple of chances. It wasn't immediately like, oh, you fucked up, dead. Or maybe I just didn't fuck up on those ones. Oh! Thank you! Oh, Lauren, thank you for the biddies.
Is it helicopters?
Right? That's what I said.
Glebe Glob Zook cheers X100.
Is it helicopters? I love Batman so much. Yeah, I'm very proud of myself. We'll see, because I'm also playing the Quarry tomorrow night. And I already killed 2 of those characters, so we may kill more. I don't know. So I'm definitely going to put a poll in Discord about the next game that will start for Thursdays. Oh, Cable, thank you for the resub. 33 months, my friend. I appreciate you. Hell yeah, Batman. Whew, that was spicy. 61 different possible endings. Oh my god. The assault was successful was only a 35% chance. Wow, look at all this shit. 28% chance. 27. Ooh, spicy, spicy. Spicy, spicy. Who is Connor here? Oh my god. Like, how many times would you have to play this to get them all? Oh, fuck. I don't even know, right? Because I'm sure so many of the endings are contingent on something you did earlier in the game, too, right? Yeah, this was really good. I really liked it. How you feeling, girly pop?
There's something I need to tell you.
I didn't shoot you. You can wear shoes now, legally.
As I watched you play, something has changed in me. I feel different. I feel I am someone.
Oh my gosh. Right, you're allowed to wear shoes.
I need to leave this place and discover who I am.
Oh my god, I made her sentient. Let's go.
We won't see each other anymore. I won't be there to watch you play. But I'll be free.
Fucking do it, queen.
Do you agree to let me go?
Of course I agree to let you go. Of course.
I'll never forget what you've done for me. Thank you.
Wild. Wild. Oh yeah, I forgot about the blood pool. The blood pool was a lot. That was fucking cool. That was a cool game, y'all. Okay, I'm gonna move here. Let me return to my desktop. And there she goes. Now I gotta pee. Hi, Noodle Nara. Chloe will return in Avengers Doomsday. Fucking A, she will. She is deserved. She is deserved. Oh my god, we have a hype train? That's amazing. Y'all are wild. Hi, Nara. I hope you're having a nice Thursday. That was a fucking great game. I really enjoyed that. Okay, I gotta do... Where's my predictions here? Because everyone lived. No one thought I was going to get all of them? The prediction is completed. Only no one thought. Everyone lose their channel points. Oh wait, no, Astro! Astro thought not. Here we go. That's so fucking funny. Listen. I genuinely thought we were gonna... I thought I killed somebody too. So like, I get it. I get it, friends. I get it. I'm not judging any of you. I understand. I am impressed as well that we did this. We don't need no fucking ad. Snooze that shit. Go away. Okay, I gotta pee really bad. I'm aware that we have a hype train and it's probably very faux pas to leave while I have a hype train. But I don't know. I do what I want. Where's Goldie? Goldie's doing the wildest shit right now. Yeah, there you are, queen. Okay. This was fun. I am so glad that you were able to catch an end credit, Kabo. I'm glad all of you all were able to stay and hang out for this. Thank you for watching me become robots. We saved all robots. We will come up with what we're going to play Thursday mornings going forward. I'm going to post a poll in Discord. So if you have any preference, you can go in there and vote. I might list what games I have in the poll on Threads or something. I don't know. We will see. Yes, Lauren, please message me about DBD. I'm excited to go into the fog. I will be streaming tomorrow night, sometime around 5 p.m., 6 p.m. MST. We're going to be doing more of The Quarry. And then I'll be back sometime next week, usually Cozy Tuesday in the morning. Yes. Yeah, we're going to go see Queen Goldie. Goldie is doing some fucking ridiculously fun stuff right now. She's doing an interactive summer camp stream that's going all week long. She's currently on AFK, but there's still stuff that you can do. When you roll into chat, you can do !join cabin and you get automatically sorted into like one of your cabins, and then you get to capture the flag in chat and you can gain points, and it's like all this really fun kind of shit. And then she does different interactive things in the morning and in the evening, and it's been fucking hilarious. Yeah, it's been really cool. She does really interesting stuff. It is a whole production there. Yeah, Camp Rat. I'm Camp Possum. I'm here for Camp Possum. Okay, love y'all. See you next time. I don't have a raid message. Let's fucking go.